Good morning, everyone. Good morning, our viewers of Fun to Fit with Flying Coach. I am quite excited today to be talking about a subject that I'm sure is very relevant to a lot of people. We've gone through 2 years of hell, literally, and it's been one of those where we've had to really pull on our resolve and make sure that we are able to just survive. This was in 2020 and in 2021. Come 2022, as usual, resolutions. And I'm sure a lot of us then decided with COVID having kept us indoors, we wanted to go outside and be active. Some of us might have gained a little bit of weight as a result of being at home. And obviously, we then made that resolution that we wanted to come out and really be active. But 2022 also was like one of those years that's like you are hitting on a brick wall. And now we are approaching a silly season where some of the stuff of the things that we have resolved we're going to do this year, like the weight loss, like eating healthy, I'm sure it's going to go out the window as we approach the silly season where all these festivities are happening, and suddenly we are tempted by the year-end parties where we are invited, and there are all these temptations that come our way. So what we're going to be talking about today is how do we work through the silly season and make sure that we don't unravel the stuff that we have began at the beginning of the year, our resolutions, as well as just making sure that we're able to continue into the new year with those beautiful bodies, eating well, and making sure that whatever it is that we started this year will continue. So online, I have 2 very, very good friends of mine, and they are experts in their various fields. So today we are discussing holistic wellness. We are going to be talking from a mental point of view in terms of what do you need to do to work on yourself mentally so that you are able to withstand the silly season and continue with whatever gains you had made this year. And online again, we have a dietitian who's world-renowned, and she's going to be talking about that. She's going to be touching on the aspect of the wellness side when it comes to of the diet side when it comes to wellness. So without wasting any further time, I am going to ask Michele Lima to introduce herself and let us know what she does before we get on. And then I'll get Dr. Ella to also introduce herself. Michele, over to you.
Hi, Tuli. Hi, listeners, viewers. I'm Michele Lima. I'm currently a HR director, and I've spent probably my entire career working with individuals in the corporate environment and personally in terms of personal development, leadership, and also self-discovery. I think one of the key things I want to just mention is that I'm a qualified yoga instructor. I do that for fun and just also for my personal practice. So I'm a big, big believer in keeping a healthy mind, a healthy body, but also feeding your soul. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Michele. We can't wait to speak to you about that side. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of nuggets and key insights that we are going to get out of you.
I hope so.
Dr. Ella is no stranger to this platform. It's quite unbelievable that 2 years ago when I started this, she was my very first guest on the platform. So Dr. Ella, let me hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tuli.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tuli. It's so good to be back and to speak to your viewers, our people. So I'm Ella Mthethwa. I'm a registered dietitian and a healthy lifestyle coach. But as most might know or might not know, I dabble in a lot of aspects in terms of the health and wellness scenario or the health and wellness game. I'm very much involved in community nutrition and the healthy lifestyle arena from a family sort of intervention point of view. A lot of you might have seen that I conduct a lot of workshops for women, a lot of workshops for youth, and very much involved in terms of family therapy or working with families so that they can live a healthy lifestyle as a family, as a joint unit. I'm also a marketing strategist in my other role. And I've just recently become a published author. I've got my own very own book. I've written a book, which I think Michelle will also be very interested in, because it's very much around issues and challenges that people face and women face. People face, but particularly women face within the corporate environment, which impacts their health and wellness in general. So thank you so much for having me in the platform again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Viewers, I must really say that I'm actually excited. These two ladies, I cannot wait to hear what they have to say on this issue of holistic wellness. So, Michelle, let me start with you. In my introduction, I had indicated that we've gone through really 2 years of great difficulty for a lot of people. What issues have people presented to you within the past 2 years in terms of both the wellness and health perspective?
Yeah. So, I mean, thanks, Julie, for that very, very important question. I think there's two things I want to just touch on before I kind of get to that particular answer around what they've been experienced. It's why we've experienced what we've experienced, particularly in 2022, is unique. And I think I liken it to a form of PTSD. Because if you think about it, 2 years of COVID, individuals were suddenly faced. In the first year, the concept of COVID was a little bit maybe more further removed. It wasn't so personal. It wasn't someone I knew who was either dying from COVID or traumatically affected by COVID. But by year 2, it became quite personal. It became very personal for individuals. So emotionally, mentally, spiritually, people were being far stretched beyond their capacity. And why I liken it to a form of PTSD is essentially it's like we were in a form of a war zone because we were suddenly displaying hypervigilance. We were hypervigilant about cleaning. We were hypervigilant about who we came into contact with. We were hypervigilant. So the brain just isn't built to be in a form or a state of hypervigilance for prolonged periods of time. It's a defense mechanism. It's a defense mechanism, that whole fight, flight, freeze response that happens essentially in the brain is essentially supposed to be in a state of crisis, and it's supposed to be short-lived. So your body has all this adrenal, the adrenal gland releases all this adrenaline, and you sprint away, when you're in a state of trauma. But it's supposed to be short-lived. But when you've experienced it for 2 years, you suffer from adrenal fatigue. Because if you think about it, that is what has happened to most people. And adrenal fatigue manifests as the sense of exhaustion, this deep sense of exhaustion. And saying to people, I listen to people saying to me, like, I'm sleeping 12 hours, but I'm still tired. I feel just exhausted emotionally, mentally, physically, and they're always saying to me, I don't know why. I'm sleeping, I'm eating well, I don't know why. And the reality is, adrenal fatigue it takes as long as it takes. But the longer we stay in a state of this mental exhaustion, until we start to distance ourselves, be kind to ourselves, we can't get out of it. And what has been presented, particularly in the workplace, is people's emotional stability has really been rocked by this feeling of exhaustion. Because totally. So people are saying to me, I'm tired all the time. They feel more emotional than usual because essentially their resilience measure is taken to the limits. And like a rubber band, that's what resilience essentially is. It's about stretching yourself and then coming back. People want to go back to the way it was, but we will never go back to the way it was. And that is a mental block for a lot of us. So this idea that I'm going to be exactly the same as I was before all of this happened is quite an important aspect, because people can't get themselves to come to terms with that. So this is why people are far more emotional. Mental health issues have just escalated. I think the mental health profession, my sister and my cousin are clinical psychologists. My background is industrial psychology, but they are inundated with clients, and it's been, I think, for the mental health profession, a booming year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but at least people are seeking help. Yeah.
It's quite interesting, Michelle, what you are saying, because suddenly things that never used to faze you, you find that this year they are triggers that just like faze you, that never used to be an issue. And obviously, when that happens, binging, Dr. Ella, when it comes to diet and you start eating stuff that you are not supposed to eat, because you are comfort eating, and there's quite a lot of things that you are trying to mask with that. So Ella, on your side, what have you been experiencing? Let's just run us through what are the things that you have observed you are finding people.
So truly from a health and wellness sort of point of view, Michelle is actually quite spot on. I always say that with COVID-19, there's me, I always talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
So there's some good aspects to it around in terms of the health and wellness space, but there are also some aspects that really are quite concerning, as Michelle has highlighted. And what I've seen is that because COVID-19 was such a sort of new phenomenon for a lot of us, we also sort of learning along the way. But what's good is that, professionals are, we're all clear that this is a journey, a learning curve for all of us. Mm-hmm. And we're all very vested in terms of investing our time and efforts to ensure that what we share out there and what we present to the people out there and how we work on how we work with people through their journeys is the best that we can do. So I think the good from a health and wellness space, what I've seen is that it's made people in the last 2 years, people have generally become more health conscious. Mm-hmm. They've become more health conscious, and because of the sort of fear of death, fear of COVID-19, a lot of people have become really willing to change their lifestyles as well, and to stay well. And I mean, in the same breath, I can say that it's easier said than done, because it hasn't been easy. Yeah. People have discovered that it's not that easy to make that change. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the mindsets, they've become a lot more willing to change. And so they're more ready to embrace change in their lifestyles. But what I've also seen is that people have become more informed and more woke around topics of health and wellness. Yeah. And that comes also with the good and the bad, because a lot of people go into I call it Planet Google or Flight Google, Planet Google.
Oh, Google is one of the worst.
And there's all sorts of information that is available on Google, and some of it is not quite evidence-based and could be harmful. Because as I've always said, even in the past, especially when it comes to nutrition and the likes, when it comes to the therapeutic side of nutrition and not sort of more the preventative side of nutrition, it's very important to customize and to understand what it is, the status of that person first, before, one recommends or goes on a special diet. And I always use, for example, supplements, where people see people drinking all these supplements, and they're like, I also want to fall into the bandwagon, and they also want to do the same. And in the meantime, and they gain weight, and they don't understand why. Whereas it wasn't meant for them. So people are woke around the topics, but they also need guidance. And I also think this is good news, Michelle, in the sense of mental health and mental wellness is no longer the taboo or a stigmatized topic as it was in the past. So there's a general acceptance around how mental issues, the fact that there are mental issues, and the fact that people had to be intentional in terms of seeking assistance, and seeking assistance doesn't equal to weakness. So for me, that has really been a major positive in terms of the health and wellness space. But at the same time, because of the sort of the changes around in terms of finances, people, in terms of financial wellness, people, so the people who've lost jobs, right? Or they've been downgraded, or they've had, salary cuts because of, or loss of income because of the reduction in terms of the amount of work that they were getting, because of the types of professions that they are in. Unlike ourselves that are in the health space where there's a lot of, and psychologists and so forth, where it's been quite the opposite. So what that has meant is that they've had to sort of like prioritize. And for some of them, education is a priority. Children's education is a priority. Fuel is a priority. And some have compromised in terms of what they eat. Because some would say to me, for example, that I find that say, you know what, I find that, foods that are less than healthy are more cheap, is cheaper. Like amagwinya, fake cook, and all of that you get in the township are much cheaper. And then so people have veered, in the same breath, people have sort of veered towards those cheaper alternatives in terms of they've changed their food choices. The environment has also changed. There are blurred lines now in terms of the workspace and your workspace and your home space. And your storage, in inverted commas, your storage, or you keep the most amount of food and your snacks and all of that, your sort of area of possible or potential indulgence is mainly your home, where you have all your, like I said, you have all of this available for you. So there's been sort of that type of change in terms of that. And for a very long time, when we had to be nannies, when we had to have our kids, had to be nannies, had to be teachers, and we had to have our, when we had our kids at home, most people had their kids at home. There was also the struggle of, now, how do I control the nutritional intake of my little one? Because now they're very young and they're having to make these choices. And ordinarily, they would be so exhausted and so active at school. But now here they are. They become less active, so they become sedentary, less active, and very much on screens. And then they also now introduced to this world of indulgence, and consistently so. So though, for me, those are the major changes that I've seen during these last two years. And it comes with its problems.
Yeah. Sure, guys, you have spoken about quite a number of things that are coming in, that you've observed from your different spaces that are really impacting on the physical, mental, as well as even spiritual wellness. So now my quick question to you that I have is, what has been your approach in terms of dealing with such things? Perhaps let me start with you again, Michele. So here people are presenting themselves. They've gone through this massive mental fatigue as a result of this constant adrenaline rush, as they were on high alert in the last 2 years. And then suddenly they are hitting this crash and they do not know how to take themselves out of this. So what has been your approach towards this?
So there's been a couple of approaches. I think the first thing is to help people identify where they're at. I think that's very important. You need to know where you're at so that you can figure out where you want to be and then kind of work towards that. I think the second thing is building a level of self-compassion. I think women in particular, we're not always so good at showing kindness to ourselves. I think we're very good at giving that, So reminding individuals about the concept of we cannot pour from an empty cup. So, being someone who is a giver, and I think that by nature, most women, essentially, that's intrinsic to their, to their profile, is to be givers. To remind them that until you heal yourself, you cannot heal anyone else. And I liken it really to like being on a plane, and I always say, if you think about, you get onto a plane and the steward starts describing what's going to happen in the case of an emergency, and the mask is going to drop down. And the first thing they say to people is, please put on your own mask first. And that's the kind of analogy I reflect to individuals. Your plane is going down. And I actually say this, I say, let me tell you where you're at. Your plane is going down. the oxygen mask has dropped and you need to put on your own mask first so that you can help other people on the plane with you. Until you put on your own mask, you're not going to save nobody. And I think that is quite a shocking revelation for individuals, because they suddenly realize, hold on, but I thought my plane is still flying. And I'm like, no, your plane is going down. You are, you're ratty, you're short-tempered, you're responding in a way that is unlike you. You don't like the way you're responding, you don't like the way you're feeling, you don't like this constant emotional response to everything. So this is a sign that your plane is going down. So when you help people first identify that they're not okay and help them to come to terms with that concept first. Because, Dr. Ella, you're absolutely right that the stigma around mental health has certainly lifted. I don't think it's gone. I think it's lifted. I think it's deeply prevalent in especially African communities, this idea that being tired all the time or not responding as you normally or are expected to means that there's something wrong with you. And they liken it to not mental health as being something that can be treated, but rather something hidden and something almost magical or spiritual, right? There's a defect or there is something else outside of you. They don't see it as being part of the individual, that we are many things. We are not just, one thing. So, when we are stretched beyond our capacity, we will appear, or we will arrive, or we will be present socially and personally different. We cannot be the same. And also with all the change that we've experienced mentally, our cognitive capacity to recognize that we need help is also stretched. So we don't always have perspective, so it's very important to really surround yourself. So I say to them, like, who are you talking to? Because if you're talking to somebody else who's in the same place as you, misery loves company. So you're going to keep yourself in that place, and everything is going to be really essentially a conversation from a victim mindset. In other words, it's something outside of myself. It's not me. And realizing that essentially you cannot control what is happening around you. You cannot control the weather. You can't control how other people are going to respond or how other people are going to arrive, but you can control yourself. And helping people kind of recenter themselves is very important. And one of the things that I encourage individuals to start is meditation. Meditation is probably one of the most useful and underrated tools. That is something that you technically carry with you every single day, because the easiest form of meditation is breath meditation. All you have to do is sit somewhere comfortably, allow your eyes to close, and just focus your attention on your breath. That's all you have to do. Don't change your breath. Don't move the breath. Just notice it. Because then what you're doing is, sorry, I just want to say this to you. What you're doing is you are not making your mind still, you are quietening the mind. In other words, it's like you're turning the volume down on all the noise that you are experiencing around you, all the pressure, all the, social demands, your children, in the house, your employer and their expectations, the financial pressures, your partner, all these demands that you feel exhausted by or stretched by. That stress is essentially like the radio playing 15 radio stations at once, full blast in the mind. That's what's happening. And essentially meditation, and someone said to me, but I can't make my mind stop. And I said to them, I don't want you to make it stop. I just want you to turn the volume down a bit, just to quieten it a bit. Because if you do that, if you can just make it softer, tomorrow when you do it again, you make it a little bit softer and a little bit softer. Eventually you'll get to a point where you can sit in absolute mental clarity. It is about creating distance between yourself and the situation, yourself and the environment, yourself and the pressures, yourself and the world. And in creating distance, you gain perspective. And when you gain perspective, you gain mental clarity. And mental clarity means better decisions. Better decisions. And whether those decisions are about food, or whether they're about financial choices, or whether they're about where you put your energy, or whether they're about, you know, your decisions about your fitness, it is mental clarity.
Brilliant.
So that's probably the best advice I've given. And I give a free class, a free yoga class with meditation at the office to the staff that want to. And one of my staff members is probably, I call her, she works in my team actually, her name is Ayanda. I call her the machine. She gyms every single day. She's got the most amazing body. She's so diligent with her eating. Like she's very health conscious. She's very aware for many reasons. And she's always been like that pre-COVID. But what was quite interesting is she had never practiced meditation. And so she started coming to the yoga class once a week. And at the end, we closed with a meditation. And she kept saying to me, Michele, I can't keep still. And I said, it's okay. It'll come. And she started practicing it. And now she tells me how she sits in a meditation for 25 minutes. And that has actually saved her life. She actually said it saved her life because it allowed her to have such better mental clarity. And her stress levels have dropped substantially. Her health has also improved. Not that she was unhealthy, you know, but I mean, it is one of the most amazing tools that we don't use as much as we could, you know. So that's probably been the best.
Yeah, you know, Michele, you touched earlier on the fact that we have to allow ourselves to be somehow selfish because you can't pour from an empty cup. And I must say that it's one of those that I've really struggled with on my side until also I discovered meditation, where with meditation you suddenly are forced to reflect on yourself and have a better conversation with yourself to allow yourself to be less guilty about putting yourself first instead of putting others. And I find that I do a lot of that meditation when I'm walking outside in amazing nature. It allows me to be one with myself, and it does a lot of wonders to start the day off like that. And it sets the tone for what the rest of your day is going to look like and the choices you're going to make that day. But I think for me, the biggest learning out of it is that thing of allowing yourself to be less guilty about putting yourself first. And really reflecting on things that drive you, because a happier you makes for a happier family. Now, Dr. Ella.
Julie, can I just
can I go to you? Go for it, Michele.
Sorry, I just wanted to say something. Deepak Chopra, who's probably the biggest proponents of meditation and yoga and advocates, he describes meditation as, if prayer is our conversation with the universe or spirit or God, depending on what you believe on, meditation is the reply. The meditation is the reply. It's either God's reply to you or the spirit's reply to you. And it is the best description. Meditation is where the answers are, because it's looking inward. It is about looking inward.
Great. That is fantastic. And indeed, it's true. I can attest to that myself. So Ella, let's come to you, my friend. So how have you dealt with all these things, issues that have been presented to you?
Okay, so the good news is that it wasn't just, it wasn't me. So I was just part of the dream team. And that's what I call it. I call the people, I tell people, tell families that each family must put together their own dream team.
Yeah.
So part of it has been very much similar to what Michele has already touched, in terms of just taking some time or taking an opportunity to do a bit of introspection around the various aspects of your life. Because and I think we've a lot of us or have tried to sort of put across a message of this era being an era where it's an opportunity for rebuilding or recalibrating one's life.
Yep.
That's the approach. So that's the first approach in terms of trying to get people to sort of rewire in terms of moving away from this deep hole, this deep dark hole that a lot of people seem to find themselves in, to a place where psychologically and in the way that we do things, we move to a space of, this is an opportunity, this is my opportunity now to do better, to be better as an individual, and to do better for my family, and for us to be better for each other. So that's the first approach. Very strong introspection, and very honest introspection in terms of even including finances, because finances have a very high impact in terms of the impacts a person's psychological, well-being. So even up to that, so having a checklist in terms of what are the stressors, what are the stressors in my life with an O? What are the triggers for stress in my life?
Yep.
What is it that I can do in terms of to make my life a little bit easier, a little bit better? With COVID-19, a lot of people had to cut down on a lot of things. And then what it is that I've learned during these last 2 years, because people have learned some positives about themselves in terms of just resilience. Just resilience. I can do with less. I've been able to do with less. But how can I just sort of channel that in a positive way? Like, for example, with myself, I literally just looked at my wardrobe. And I've spoken to myself and I've said, listen, I don't need to buy any more clothes in the next 2 years. I literally have an outfit for every day of the year.
Oh, wow.
And why is it that I always go and buy?
I want to shop in your cupboard.
Exactly.
You can come and shop in my cupboard.
You must become a minimalist like me.
Exactly.
Become a minimalist.
Exactly.
Michelle, you're so right. And I listen to a financial advisor. I also listen to Tuli, because there's a side that viewers don't know about Tuli, that she's actually a financial wellness aspect, and we need to tap onto that next year.
Yeah.
But these small things, like, don't be ashamed to repeat an outfit. And I actually tested that. Three different in the past I wouldn't be caught dead wearing the same outfits within a quarter, in 3 months or 6 months.
Imagine the pressure you are putting yourself in, Ella.
So we're putting ourselves in unnecessary pressure, which then stresses you, which then affects your sort of your health and well-being in the long term. So very proper introspection, honest introspection is point number one. Number two has been being intentional about health, because now we're saying that in most instances, in varying degrees, people have become woke around issues of health. Some because of panic and fear of death, and others simply because they now have gone on this journey and they've made some wonderful discoveries around topics around immunity. And they found that, listen, I've spoken to my dietitian, she's given me this and that recipe, and it actually worked. And there's also been a change in terms of mindset around the fact that it shouldn't be acute health. When there are issues of health, that people start running. That this health and wellness is a journey, and it's a lifestyle, and it's something that has to be maintained. So that even when you come to times when you're away or it's festive season, you're able to sort of make in a reasonable amount, in a reasonable degree, you're able to make the right choices that are good for you. So being intentional with your health. And that means actually really sitting down with your family. And Tuli, I'm very much about family. Sitting down with the family, and as a family, these are our goals. Umali, she's very much into this. Umfundo, my little grandson, he's very much now is growing and he's starting to, take part in extracurricular activities. He's into sports, and something as simple as drinking enough water. Starting these habits, like slowly and gradually inculcating those habits and setting goals as families has been part of sort of the one of the initiatives or the ways that I've been approaching the current issues in terms of health and wellness. And then last but not least is also teamwork. Teamwork in the sense of like you Tuli and Unoktu or Nox, and we've also got to Zo. We're a group of friends who we keep each other honest when it comes to health and wellness. And we motivate each other. Just finding the right sort of dream team, both personally as well as professionally.
Fantastic. I must say that I was listening attentively to all the nuggets that you guys were giving us. Starting with Michele, who spoke about, the first person you need to start with it is yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. Sure, that for me is one of the things that I've had to learn and learn quite fast, because as I'd indicated before, a happier you is a happier family. And you also spoke, Michele, about a lot of allowing yourself to really be selfish about your space, your time, so as to give yourself time to be able to deal with all these things that are happening. And you covered a topic that a lot of us still need to learn a little bit more about. And I'll probably bring you in my next segment, where we talk about this whole thing of meditation and how it really helps in terms of centering you and enabling you to deal with quite a number of things that might be stressors in your life, but it just allows you to separate, the clutter in your head, so that you are able to think properly, and a healthier mind, and a mind that's able to remove all of these all this clutter that's happening, is actually a mind that will be able to work and work properly. And then Dr. Ella spoke about being intentional about quite a number of things, intentional about health, intentional about starting new habits, and making sure that you bring in support structures that are going to help you in the journey, and those that are going to keep you honest in terms of the things that you've committed yourself to do. And these are the things that are actually going to help you as you approach the silly season, where suddenly all these decisions that you've made are unraveling, and you are starting to make choices because of peer pressure, because of things that are happening. You are now saying, it's been the end of the year, I'm allowing myself time to, relax and do all of these things. But once you keep in mind the meditation, you self-introspect, you have the support structure, it's actually going to help you in terms of dealing with issues. Now, 2023 is approaching, good people. We don't know what it brings. We don't know what it's going to, what difficulties and challenges it's going to bring to us. So now I want to start with Dr. Ella. Dr. Ella, what advice would you give people that are watching us on this segment in terms of the things that they will need to do to keep going in 2023?
For 2023. Okay, good. So my advice is the approach. Number one would be the approach, because sometimes people take the movement into, or the step into another year as if it was this huge step that needs huge goals and needs, and they set themselves up for failure. So the first thing for me, again, is to for people to understand that moving into 2023 is part of their lifelong journey.
Sure.
So the year is changing, but it's part of their lifelong journey. Yes, with the change of season and atmosphere, and it being the beginning of the year, and people coming from a certain sort of period of festivities and the likes, there would be a change in vibe and mood, and there's an air of new beginnings, refreshment, freshness, and hopefully, and we hope that people have rested during that period, the festive season at some point.
I can
So
see Michelle is going.
So if you haven't,
Rested, Ella.
the first point, if you haven't rested, the first point is make sure that you take some time to rest before you even get to 2023. So for instance, you're getting into 2023, you're going back to work in the middle of the month. That last week should just be about you and you are resting. Take some time to rest. Because we know, especially in our families, when you go to the rural areas, and maybe you're the youngest, you go there and you work throughout. Because there's no helper, the expectation is that you will cook, you will do this, and you're looking after everybody else. So take some time to rest and get you. So in summary, you're going in position for 2023 should be good. Start off from a good place. Number 2, don't set yourself up for failure. Don't set yourself up for failure. I remember very well before I became a pescatarian, and I stopped eating meat. And I would say, hey, 12 midnight, I'm going to stop eating meat. And I would say that in the middle of a braai. In the middle of the braai. And then what would happen? 2 hours later, I'm chomping away at meat. So it might sound like a very trivial example, but set yourself up for success. So
that's true.
Start with put together realistic goals and set an environment that will enable you to win in 2023 and have like little milestones. So even in health, have little milestones. One can't say, I want to lose 20 kilograms, because that's what people say. I want you to be the fittest I've ever been. I want to be sculpted and all of that. No. Set yourself realistic goals. And my message for this year, my message for this year is get support, get help, ask for help. There are people there to help you. Get your dream team together and surround yourself with people that are going to help you to win, because one needs those tools to win. So in terms of the technical part of it, in terms of sort of the nutrition plan, because it's not diet, it's a nutrition plan and eating plan that one has to sort of work through and follow throughout the year. Because when we say diet, it sometimes sounds like it's a one-time possible. It's going to boost. We use words like boost. It's going to create rapid weight loss. All of that. It's all part of a lifestyle for the long haul. So just ensure that you have that, people that can give you the tools, but people that can also give you support, family, friends, all of that. Set yourself up for success in your health and wellness journey for 2023.
Thank you, Dr. Ella. Michelle, what do you have to say on your side?
Sure. So, Dr. Ella, I think, has covered quite a few points that I think we're essentially aligned. I think I do view a new year a little bit different, in the sense that I do think it requires us to think about the year that has passed, reflect on what worked for you, hold on to that, and also give yourself credit. I think, as I mentioned, we're not generally kind to ourselves. So often, like, you go into this silly season, as you said, Tuli, go into the silly season, we have one day where we have cake, we have, whatever the drink is, and we have some bread or pizza or whatever. And suddenly we're like, no, stuff it. I've already fallen off the wagon, and then they just go crazy, right? So I think there is this, then people go mad. Then it's like every pizza they see or everything that's bad for them, and then they almost self-sabotage. So I think there is a level of just be kind to yourself and remind yourself that, yes, so I had a cheat today. It doesn't mean now I go totally off the rail, but rather but rather show compassion and say, yes, I had a cheat, so tomorrow I'll be more vigilant. And I think to allow yourself that kind of kindness in this time, that this is a time of celebration. This is about recognizing another year. This is also about reflecting on the things that were wins for you. I think that's important. I think often we're very good at reflecting at the things that we failed at.
Yeah.
And holding on to them like some precious gem, and then carrying them with us everywhere. And we constantly open our bag and look at all the fails instead of going, oh, what are the things I nailed this year? And whether it was that outfit that one day, whether it was that meeting, or whether it was, the day your kid looked at you and said, mommy, I love you, whatever it is, right? Holding on to those things and then and reflecting with gratitude. So I think that's very important. Start from a place of gratitude and compassion, right? So if you start from there, then you talk about the year that's coming. And something I do every single year, I've been doing this since I was about 12 actually, is I make my list for the year ahead. And I focus on essentially just a handful of things. So the first thing is I want to go somewhere I've never been. I always put like a trip because I'm a big traveler. I love to travel. So I always say to myself, I'm going to make it my intention that I'm going to go somewhere I've never been before. And what's quite interesting for me is that I don't actually pick a place ever. I ask the universe to allow it to unfold. And every single year, the universe has unfolded, and I have gone to at least one place locally and one place overseas that I've never been. And it's happened like that every single time. So I make that an intention. So I want to travel one place I've never been, and I just trust that it will happen, and it does every single time. Because subconsciously, I'm not obsessing about it and trying to control it. I'm trusting that it will happen. So that's one part of it. And then the other thing I put on my list is I commit to something for myself from a health and wellness point of view. So last year, it was to become qualified yoga instructor. This year, as you know, Mass and I committed to do a 100K hike through Pondoland, which we did. And we actually saw you at the end of that hike. We stayed at your house, and remember, I came with a swollen foot, which I thought I sprained. I'm not sure if I mentioned to you, but actually my foot was not sprained. I actually hiked all 100 kilometers with a broken foot.
You're kidding me.
Turned out my foot was actually broken, and I walked the entire hike through Pondoland with Matt. With a broken foot.
Mind at its best.
But it was also, but I mean, I think, so that accountability. So I pick one thing that I want to do, one thing that gives me a fitness goal. So the hike was it, because I was I was fit from a yoga and flexibility point of view and from a mental health point of view, but physically totally not prepared to do 100 kilometers. I mean, if someone had said it to, and I think that you need to pick one thing, one goal. So whether it's, I want to lose some weight, and if the number is, I want to lose 20 kilos, it's over the year. And give that to yourself as one goal that you are intentionally leaning into. And I think specifically when we're talking about wellness and fitness and mental and physical health, so commit yourself to one thing. So if it's to improve your mental health, every decision then you make becomes quite clear around supporting that destination, if that makes sense. If it's physical, I'm going to focus on just my eating, because then you've got the mental capacity to commit yourself to that one thing. Because if we, and Dr. Ella, you said it so right, we put like 20 things, like I want to lose 20 kilos and I want to do it in 3 weeks. I want to eat healthy, or I want to become a pescatarian. So I am a pescatarian. So I've been a pescatarian for about 5 years. So I totally understand that idea of wanting to.
Bye, Julie.
There was a reason you met. Wow. Okay.
Since 2007. Yeah.
Oh, wow. wow, that's amazing. So I used to be a vegetarian, and then I ate meat again, and then I became a pescatarian about 5 years ago again for health reasons. And that was it. Like I committed myself just for that first year that I was going to be intentional about my eating. And that's how I gave up meat, because I knew I didn't feel good with it. So I think become intentional about the one thing you're going to commit yourself to. And if you can do that for 30 days, then you can do it for 60, then you can do it for 90. And then it becomes, like you said, Dr. so beautifully, it's a lifestyle. Then it's a lifestyle. It's not a sprint, because this is actually a marathon. We're in a marathon.
Absolutely.
Our lives is a marathon. And
Absolutely.
in that marathon, we have breaks where we stop and we get our water and whatever, and we rejuvenate. But we also understand the peaks and the troughs of that. And so if this marathon is a long race, for this year, what are you focusing on? Just for this year, one thing. And if you pick one thing, it's so much easier, because then you're also not punishing yourself. But when you pick like 5 things or 10 things, you are going to fail. If not at all of them, at least at half of them, because you cannot hold your commitment and attention to so many things to the level that you have of the expectation that you have of yourself. Because often we are so unkind to ourselves. It's we either do it 100% perfect or we're failing. So we don't have that compassion. And so because we don't have that compassion with ourselves, we then sabotage.
Yeah.
And that sabotage is generally fueled by one of 3 things: fear, obligation, or guilt. Fear, obligation, or guilt. And if you put those words together, it actually creates the word fog.
Fog.
The fear of
Fog.
Love it.
fog. And it clouds
fog.
our perspective.
Yeah.
It creates fog. So when we make decisions, so like often people will say to me, like, I can't become a pescatarian because my partner eats meat. I'm like, okay, what has that got to do with you? They are responsible for their life, their decisions. My sister is also a pescatarian. My brother-in-law eats meat. My sister just says to him, Lovey, when I'm cooking, if I'm going to make you a piece of meat, but don't think we're going to eat meat every day. So it becomes an honest, if you want to eat meat every day, you are welcome to step into the kitchen and join me and make your piece of meat every single day. Fortunately, my brother-in-law he's not a big meat eater, so he kind of just went with the flow, because he preferred somebody else making him food. So it's about choices, right? So often we feel like we have to. You don't ever have to do anything. We choose every single day. We choose. And I think that is so important. So like I said, show compassion to yourself, be kind. So don't punish yourself if you kind of have a bit of a silly season today. Just don't make it every day, right? So just remember that. Commit to one thing for yourself in 2023, and then have someone that's with you, like Dr. Ella said, that's your accountability partner. That is the person you're sharing your journey with, saying, like, today I really struggled with not eating meat. I wanted the biggest cheeseburger I could find, or whatever it is. So those 3 things would be the things for me. Yeah.
If I can just jump in there, I love the fact that you're talking about accountability partners, because in our office this year, we as a team, we all sort of had a goal of improving finances for everyone. So we became accountability partners. So for instance, at some point, I was getting into the habit of ordering food. And one of the ladies came rushing to me the one day. She's like, make your own lunch. So it's quite good to have those accountability partners. Absolutely awesome.
So Dr. Ella, I wanted to say this to you. When you told me that you were a shopper, a clothing shopper, I was going to ask you, what did you replace it with? And you've just told me. You replaced it with ordering food. It might have been healthy, but you just substituted one thing for something else. And I wanted to say that often the clothes, whether it's the clothes buying or the grocery shop, whatever it is, it's something that we're either we're afraid of. So whether it's judgment or whatever we're afraid of, obligation or guilt. So that's all I wanted to say.
No, I've just,
Wow.
when it comes to clothes, I've always just been that girl that one that
Elegance.
looks
The elegance.
that's always looking elegant and all of that. Yeah.
Oh man, you know what? Time is not on our side, guys. We could have gone on and on and on. But I just want to summarize so that my viewers know exactly what we've been speaking about. So both Dr. Ella and Michele are saying to us this needs to be a part of a lifelong journey. It needs to be a lifestyle, not a fad, not something that you do now and then tomorrow you're doing something else. And linked to that is that whole thing of saying that you need to really be kind to yourself. Show compassion. We run into a situation where we are forever blaming ourselves for this, blaming ourselves for that. We need to stop and really be kind to ourselves and be compassionate. And the way that we'll be able to do that is if we go and we reflect, but reflect on the things that have worked and say, how did we do it? And hold on to those things that have really worked for us, because it is that positive mindset that's going to set us up for things that are going to happen in the future. We also spoke about the fact that when we go into 2023, we need to go in a position, start off from a position of good. And that will only be done if we show gratitude for the things that we have, gratitude for the fact that we are still standing despite all of these things that have been happening around us. And then we said it is very important that we start with goals that we know we'll be able to meet. Let's not set ourselves up for failure. Even if it means that you have one thing and one thing only that you hold on to, and you make sure that you commit to that for the year, it's actually going to go a long way. So if you are going to commit to being healthy, don't now try and commit to other things. Commit to that one thing and make sure that you pull that through. We also spoke about the fact that you cannot do it on your own. No man is an island, and therefore it is very important that you have a dream team that you put together. Surround yourself with people that are going to hold you accountable to the goal that you've set yourself up, and also those people that are going to be your support structure that's going to encourage you if you fall and help you in terms of moving forward. And then lastly, we spoke about the fact that it's about choices. It is a choice you make, and therefore choose to do something positive for 2023 because it's going to set you up for good things that are going to come. On my side, I'm extremely positive, and my one goal for next year is to qualify as a personal trainer. And I want my viewers, I want my support structure, Michele, Dr. Ella, to help to hold me accountable to that, because it is what is going to help move Flying Coach to the next level. So on my side, Flying Coach, I'd like to say thank you to Michele. I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Ella for the fantastic conversation. And I'm hoping you, my viewers, learned a lot, just as much as I learned from the conversation that I had. So until next time, Flying Coach, over and out. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, ladies.
Bye,
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye, Michele.
Lovely meeting you, Dr. Ella.
Oh, lovely meeting to you too. Thank you.
Bye.